Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So if you missed part 1 of my Easter prep video, here's a quick recap. I went shopping with my dad for some flowers, did all the grocery shopping. Then back at my house, he showed me how to make these cute little flower arrangements that look like Easter baskets. We picked out the place settings and did a mock place setting just to see what it would look like. And then I tried my hand at some flower arranging with marginal success. Dad, help. These look like derangements instead of arrangements. Oh well, maybe you can come help me. And that brings us to today, Saturday morning. So I headed in to see how the flower arrangements did during the night. Ooh, excuse us, George. I was a little concerned that if those flowers didn't open, I was going to be left with some stalks in a very pretty box. Ooh, look how pretty the daffodils opened overnight. Aren't those pretty? It's much prettier with the flowers. Our hyacinth is not open yet, but it looks like it's coming, and I have a full 24 hours. So we'll see. Now I'm gonna do what Dad told me to do, which is spray. Lots of spraying to keep the moss nice and moist. There we go. And then the next thing to tackle is the menu. And then of course I have to have everything written down, because if you don't write things down, if you don't get the menu on paper, you'll forget to make something. And then you'll be serving everything at the buffet and think, oh, I forgot to make the sausage. Sorry. I hate that. I'm going to begin with some mimosas with different juice and some lemonade for the kids, followed by my blueberry scones, which are my dad's favorite. And then my mom really loves the blueberry muffins, and so I couldn't make one and not make the other. So I said, okay, fine, I'm gonna make both, one for each. And then of course my youngest daughter says, oh, Mommy, does that mean you're not gonna be making the crumb cake? I'm making the crumb cake now. It wouldn't be brunch at my house without the puffy egg bake and a collection of salsas, roasted potatoes, and then some maple rosemary sausage, which is really delicious, a fruit salad, and some cannoli for dessert. And then of course my husband, he said, well, you're not gonna make the smoked salmon on cauliflower cakes? So that's for him. I usually don't cook like this every night with everybody and their special meals, but for the holidays, I am a sucker for people pleasing. Just wanna make sure everybody gets what they want, including me. That's why I'm making the cannolis. All right, the next order of business is I need to get my buffet all figured out and then add some of these little flowers around. Oh, look at my dad. He put this little butterfly on here. I don't know about these butterflies. Maybe we'll put one sticking there instead. Looks a little bit more at home here. Okay, so I have 2 runners I can choose from. I can do this burlap one, which could be kind of pretty, or the white one. I think the white one looks a little bit more dressy. The funny thing about these butterfly ranunculus is they were pink in the bouquet, but then there were buds, and the buds are opening up yellow. So it sort of gives one more color to the arrangement. This is sort of more of a wildflower garden centerpiece. If outside is more about the plants and the moss, inside will be more about these free-formed garden arrangements. Looks pretty Eastery. With these types of wild arrangements, I always think it's better to arrange it the day before, because overnight some of these buds starts to open and it starts to fill it out a little bit better. And they seem to look better the next day. They certainly look better than they did yesterday. Okay, then the next step is to go through this list and come up with serving pieces for all of these items and make sure that they all fit on this buffet. Starting with the puffy egg bake. For the puffy egg bake, I have this rectangular baker with a spoon, and then I always like to do an assortment of salsas. That puffy egg bake is so great with salsas. Then I can put the roast potatoes in here with a spoon. For the sausage, because I like to sear them off in the pan first and then throw them in the oven, I like to put them in one of these bakers. I have this. This is actually an asparagus tong. I got it at a flea market. I need to polish it. But I thought those would probably be handy to pick up a sausage. Then I can put the fruit salad on here. I have a little spoon for it. I need to polish that. But one of the things I like about serving fruit salad is rather than put it in a large bowl where the berries can get crushed, I like to do something in a more shallow bowl, like a bowl platter, because I just think it looks so pretty. And I'm gonna top it with all of this amazing mint that is growing outside. Look at that, amazing. And my tossed salad in here. And then I had these little vintage candy cups. I have been looking for a place to put them just because they look like they'd be so fun to put little Easter candies in. So I am going to put some of those delicious little Cadbury eggs that are pastel. I thought that would look really pretty. And then anybody who wants one can grab one in the buffet line and eat it for dessert when they finish their plate. One of the things that I think makes a buffet centerpiece really fun and charming is to have it run all the way down the table. So don't isolate it just to the center of your table. You have this whole stage. It's almost like a runway. And I like to do 2 big pieces like this, and then smaller pieces like the little bud vases, and then something that's even smaller like the candy dishes. So that it has this really layered, fun effect that feels kind of whimsical. And then, of course, the kids always like to help fill the candy dishes. I might be asking for it, filling these so early. I'm hoping there's some left by morning. Now that the buffet is all set, now it's time to get into the cooking frenzy. I'm going to be cooking for about 3 hours or so, starting now. Whenever I do a lot of food prep like this, I always start with the more involved recipe first. And then as the day goes on, make sure the recipes get easier and easier. That way, at the end of the day, when you're tired, you're only working with the simplest recipes. I love this crumb cake recipe because it's another thing you can make in your cheesecake pan. You could bake it off the day before, allow it to cool, and then reheat it the day you plan to serve it. Crumb cake done. And my other tip is to do the dishes after each recipe. There's nothing worse than having cooked all day and then to turn around and look at your sink full of dishes. I also think doing the dishes refocuses you on the next recipe at hand. It's always good to start fresh. Now, I'm a firm believer that scone dough is best mixed up by hand, just like Grandma did. There's no need to drag out the food processor. It just processes the flour and the butter too much. You'll get a flakier scone by hand. Then I add a little lemon zest and some blueberries, but this is a basic scone recipe that you really can add anything you like. You could use chocolate chips, you could use raspberries, you could do raisins, really whatever you like. And the other secret to a flaky scone is to not overmix the dough or overwork it with your hands. You just want to work it just as long as you need to in order to form the dough and turn it into a square. And then use the back of a chef's knife that you've dipped in flour to really tighten up those edges and really square up your square. Because that will get you nice clean cuts, which will provide you with neat triangles. And a nice neat triangle will make a nice neat scone. And let's be honest, making scones can be a bit of a messy affair. Just look at my cutting board. But that's why I think they're best made the day before. And then you can bake them off moments before guests arrive. Just cover them with foil and pop in your fridge. I feel like I got a good start. I did all of the hardest things first, and the other things are super easy to put together. So I have to go take my daughter to a birthday party, and then I will come back and finish the rest of it. And that timed out perfectly because by the time I came back, the coffee cake was nice and cooled. I covered it with foil and then pop in the fridge. All I have to do is reheat it tomorrow. Now, this puffy egg bake is one of my most favorite brunch recipes. If you haven't tried it, you are in for a treat. It does take a dozen eggs, but hey, it feeds a dozen people, so it's well worth the price of eggs these days. It's always the recipe that people go home with because people try it and they can't believe how light and fluffy it is. And when I tell them what the secret ingredient is, a little bit of cottage cheese, they can't believe it. But that's what gives it its like souffle texture. And no one ever knows the cottage cheese is even in there. The other nice thing about it is the whole thing can be made the night before, so it's really great for brunches, Mother's Day, or Christmas morning. I just wouldn't put anything else in it. People have always asked me over the years, could I throw in some sausage or vegetables? I wouldn't do that because it weighs down the souffle-like texture, but you could add a few herbs, like some dill would be great, or chives. Just pop it in the fridge until ready to bake the next day. Georgie. If you haven't noticed, George is my constant kitchen companion. He's always looking for the snacks. Growing up with an Italian-American father, cannolis were always part of our Easter tradition. But back east, we had a lot of really great Italian delis and bakeries where you could buy a really great cannoli. But here on the West Coast, not so much, so I've always had to learn to make them myself. To serve cannolis, I like to put them on a big platter. Something that has like an indentation like that works really well so that they don't roll off the platter when you go to serve them because they are round and rolly. Now you can drain the ricotta overnight, but I find just an hour in the fridge does the trick. Then I also like to add a little mascarpone cheese. It just makes them a little bit more luxurious and less grainy. You've got your powdered sugar, and really after the vanilla, that's it. And then you just whisk it all up, and this has your base. And then you can add some mix-ins. So a lot of people like to add mini chocolate chips. I first like to go with a little bit of orange zest. I think the combination of ricotta cheese and orange is such a wonderful springtime flavor. And then add some bittersweet chocolate. I like to chop the chocolate into little chunks. Just make sure that it will fit through your pastry tip. Then I like to use some chopped pistachio nuts for the ends of the cannolis. Make sure you buy the shelled pistachios. You can find them at Trader Joe's, or you can also get them at Middle Eastern markets. And filling the cannoli is easy. Just insert your pastry tip into the cannoli shell and then pipe and then flip it around and do the other side. And the pastry cream will meet in the middle and give you a nicely filled cannoli. And then top with the chopped pistachio nuts. I do this over a sheet pan lined with some parchment paper because it does make a bit of a mess. I do not make my own cannoli shells. I have come to the conclusion there are two things not worth making from scratch in life: cannoli shells and homemade croissants. So I buy them on Amazon. They're great. Then once they're all assembled, you can put them on your platter, and that way they're all ready to go. I like to stack them almost like a cheerleading pyramid. They really fit on top of each other nicely like that, and it makes for a pretty presentation. And then you do want to cover them just so the cannoli cream doesn't dry out, but I would just loosely tent it with foil because you don't want to disturb all your pretty piping. And then moments before serving, you want to dust the whole mound with some powdered sugar. And that's all there is to it. Okay, then it was getting pretty late in the day and I think I had had enough. So I just went around and circled the things that still needed to be done that I knew that I could do in the morning. One of the things I like to do before a morning brunch is get into like a working outfit. So this is like my little working outfit, okay? Before I get into my party outfit. That way, when you're running around doing last minute prep, you're not getting your party outfit all dirty. And then my other tip is to take your to-do list and turn that into a punch list. So basically go through all the things that you have to do left and assign them a time, kind of like a run of show of when everything needs to happen in order to time out correctly before the guests arrive. I find that that is the biggest challenge with entertaining, and that really took me years to learn how to orchestrate everything. But not to worry, if you're gonna make this menu, I've got it all down for you. I'll tell you exactly what to do when. Okay, so I basically start with all of the cold things and then work my way up to the hot things right before the guests arrive. So one of the things I love to do is to take the orange juice and the grapefruit juice for the mimosas and transfer it into these French lemonade bottles. They just look prettier than the cartons, and because they actually have stoppers to them, unlike a carafe, it makes it really easy to put it in a big ice bucket or a chest. Then because the kids won't have mimosas, they like to have their own little fancy drinks. So I usually make them some homemade lemonade. We have so many lemons growing on our trees right now, and homemade lemonade is literally 3 ingredients. It's the easiest thing to make. It's lemon juice, water, a little agave syrup, and then if you'd like, you can also add some fresh mint. So I have a ton of mint growing in my garden right now, so I usually pluck some of that for garnishes. But this is the kind of detail that'll fall off the wagon if you don't do it ahead of time. So I like to just pluck it, create myself like a little bouquet, and I do the same with the rosemary because I know I'm going to need that for the roasted potatoes. So I'd rather have it all ready to go, cleaned and washed, and then I put it in little drinking glasses and pop it on my windowsill. That way I know where it is, and when I'm in the throes of cooking, it's right there. Okay, next thing, the fruit salad. So this is a fruit salad that I always turn to because I call it my no-chop fruit salad. It's basically just a bunch of berries that have been rinsed, and then if you want to get fancy, you can add some pomegranate seeds. You can find those at Trader Joe's too, the already seeded pomegranate seeds. And it's just so easy, and it looks so beautiful in the springtime or the summertime. If you wanted to add one more fruit and you have time to chop, I would throw in some strawberries. Strawberries are just coming into season right now, and so they're starting to taste pretty good. And this can all be prepped ahead and placed in your refrigerator. And then moments before serving, you'll just add some freshly chopped mint. And that's all there is to it. And then the other thing you can prep ahead is the vinaigrette for the salad. Dijon mustard, a little splash of vinegar, and then I like to use either avocado oil or grapeseed oil. So the secret with this type of dressing, though, if you want a creamy vinaigrette, is just to add the oil a little bit at a time, creating this really delicate emulsion, and then you'll get a creamy vinaigrette like that. Now, I've used this sherry vinegar, which is a little tart, so I do like to add a little bit of honey. Anytime you have a vinaigrette that feels a little bit too tart, just add a little bit of honey to it, and it'll mellow it right out. Then you can season with a little bit of salt and pepper and herbs de Provence. And for some extra credit, you could also add some shallots. That's a nice thing to do. And then just cover it and refrigerate it, and it's all ready to go. Okay, next up, time to set the table. Now, this is going to go quickly because we did our advanced work in part 1, so we know exactly what's going on this table. There's no need to figure it out. We're just executing on the plan. Well, we are going to have a beautiful day, so there is not a cloud in the sky, so this is the perfect time to get the table going. Okay, so I have my things for the bar, so we're going to set up a little bar over here, the little piece of burlap on there, just to finish it off. And then I have this great tub that I just love. I'm going to fill the whole thing with ice and then put all of the juice, the waters, all that kind of thing. I love this burlap. It works for all seasons. It's great for Easter when you want a natural look, but it's also really good for Thanksgiving and the fall as well. Just finishes off this table a little bit without making it too fancy because we are just sitting outside. So beautiful. The fragrance is divine. Anytime I set a table, I always begin with the centerpieces first, just because they're the big, large elements and you just want to build around them. Look at these. They all came out perfectly. Perfect timing. Remember, I thought these were just going to be green stalks. We are in luck. Oh, they're so beautiful, even prettier. Both of them came out. It would be really sad if one of them did and the other one didn't. So they are both ready to perform. They're so cute, these miniature daffodils. It just adds to the whole sort of fairy effect. Then, of course, we have our little bud vases. Can't forget these. I love to set things like this on the diagonal and then put the bud vases on either side, because then that way, if you're sitting on this side, you get the same effect, and if you're sitting on this side, you get the same effect. So I always think it's important to think of a tablescape from both directions because you have guests sitting at both sides of the table. Then I put down the placemats. Now, normally you wouldn't always need placemats if you have a tablecloth like that, but I think when you put the plates on top, it just makes everything pop and look prettier. Then I put down the glassware, so I have all of my champagne flutes for the Bellinis, and of course the girls will like to drink their lemonade out of the flutes as well. And then also the water glasses. So I got those and I put those down, and then the only thing really that was left to do was the cutlery. So I had that all cleaned and polished the night before. I like to set it all out on a tray like this because it just makes it easier, especially when you're setting an outdoor table, to have everything in one place. I also like to set the dessert cutlery up above as well, because that way when you bring the dessert out, you don't have to run back for the forks because it's always the thing that you forget. And then all I had left were the napkins. So I picked up a color in the plate and just decided to coordinate it with the pink on the plate. I love these linen napkins from Amazon because I just think they're such a bargain and you get so many great colors to choose from. Okay, we were ready for a party. Then I just decided to let out the awning just to protect the flower arrangements because although it's nice and shady now, it won't stay that way. And it'll get really sunny in a few hours. So the table is set, the awning is done, and we are ready to go back inside and tackle more food. And because we had our plan all figured out ahead of time, we are making good time. Time to make the blueberry muffins. So I'm going to put the blueberry muffins in this little piece, which I think is pretty. We'll put the coffee cake up on this cutting board so we can slice right on it. And then I'll leave this little basket for the scones. And because all of these pastries are pretty buttery, I wanted to use paper doilies instead of linen napkins just so that I don't stain them. The doilies are a little old school, but I don't know, when you put the pastries on top, you don't really see the doilies, and it's kind of a fun touch. Okay, the guests will be here in 45 minutes, and so I have enlisted the help of my youngest daughter to help me finish the prep. One of the things that I have realized is that children can really be a good help in the kitchen if you have everything laid out and measured out for them. Then all they have to do is follow your instructions from across the kitchen. So it's an easy thing to do, especially if they're at the age where they like to help in the kitchen. If you have everything measured, it's as simple as dumping and pouring and stirring, which is all the things that kids love to do. And that then frees up your hands so you can be across the room either cooking other things or cleaning up in the kitchen. It really does give you a second set of hands. Yeah, it's really messy. You sure you don't want me to do this part? No, it's okay. Okay, go ahead. All right, 1, 2, 3, go. And of course, they always want to do that real messy job. Like this. I always let them do a few, knowing that it's just going to create a mess. But, you know, that's what paper towels are for. Now, as it turns out, I ran out of blueberries. So instead of blueberry muffins, this is going to become almond raspberry muffins. One of the things I've realized when entertaining is there's always something that kind of goes wrong. And this is just one of those things. So I'm hoping my mom is going to like the raspberry muffins. It's basically the same exact recipe as the blueberry muffins, but instead I swapped out the blueberries for raspberries, added some almond extract, and then threw on the almonds on top. Now, when things start to hit the oven, I have really come to rely on my Amazon Alexa show. Do you guys have one of these? Because it can do several timers at once. Oh, and you can also see my videos on Amazon Alexa. All you have to do is say, play Entertaining with Beth videos, and my archive will come up. And incidentally, if anybody has not made this chocolate banana bread before, it is like to die for. So that would be another great one for your brunch. Okay, so the muffins were the last thing I had to actually make. Now we are going to get into all of the reheating. So I like to take the opportunity just to clean the kitchen a little bit at this point. Just, you know, scrub down the sink and wipe down the counters and that kind of thing. Now that everything, all the mess has basically been made. And now that the muffins are almost done, I can reheat the coffee cake. So it can go in with the muffins at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And I usually let it go for about 20 minutes or so. So I just set another timer. I got my 3 timers going now. See, and this is why I work backwards from cold to hot, because then as soon as guests are about to arrive, they're going to be treated to a nice warm muffin, hot and fresh from the oven. And now it's time to get the scones in. And they too bake at 400 degrees Fahrenheit, so the oven is all preheated and ready to go. So in they go, and they will bake for about 20 minutes or so. Okay, I am in my party outfit. I am ready. The scones are in the oven. I'm just waiting for my parents to arrive. They usually come early, and they can help me set up the bar. Happy Easter!
Happy Easter!
These are for the girls. These are so cute.
And they're fragrant.
Oh yeah, look at that. I like your Easter pants.
Here, sweetie pie.
Okay, with the guests arriving, it was time to get the pastries ready. So I like to dust the muffins just with a little bit of powdered sugar. And this is always the funniest part of every party because you're doing last minute prep. Guests are arriving. They might be bringing you things. Oftentimes there are relatives that are calling in on the cell phone. So it's kind of when the bit of the chaos begins. And at this point, I also had to prep the potatoes for the roasted potatoes. You don't want to cut the potatoes too far in advance because they will start to color on you. Then I chop the rosemary, get that going, put that in the bowl. The potatoes need a head start to the egg bake. So I typically just get them all ready on the sheet pan and then give them a shake and cover it just with a paper towel, knowing that like they're going to get in the oven in a few minutes. But I don't put that egg bake in until all the guests have arrived. But it's good for the potatoes to get a head start. Then the crumb cake was ready to go, and I'm just gonna dust that with a little sugar, pop that on the serving board. And with something like this, I do like to cut it because I think it's a little bit easier to serve that way, but I won't cut the whole thing because it will dry out in the center. So I typically will cut 4 or 5 pieces, basically 1/2 of it, and then leave the other half whole. And then the scones were done right at that time. Look at these scones. They are so delicious. I'm telling you, if you make one thing from this menu, make the scones. And then I had to make a little bit of glaze. You could just have them plain, but I like to have a little bit of just glaze on top of the scones because I think it just gives them a little something extra. And with all the guests arrived, it was time to put in the egg bake and take out the scones.
You've been waiting for these.
When you're in France, you have to be in the country.
Very, very good. These are my favorite.
Try the raspberry muffins. Tell me what you think. See if they're as good as the blueberry.
These are fantastic.
Well, blueberry is fabulous.
I know,
Let me
right?
see.
But
Oh, I can tell by cutting in, it's
Yeah, it does
lighter
look
than air.
what do you think?
Vive la chef.
How do you get them so light?
It's the combination of the butter and the oil, doesn't it? And the water, the secret ingredient.
Delicious.
So are they better than the blueberry, or just as good?
No, they're just as good, but you know me and blueberries.
I know. I'll make you the blueberry for Mother's Day. How's that?
These are so good.
Okay, the guests are here. They're all enjoying the scones and the muffins. This is the best time to slip off and start the sausage. These are amazing, these cauliflower pancakes from Trader Joe's. I'm gonna stick them in my air fryer and I'm gonna serve them with the salmon. Then while that's going, I can start on the breakfast sausage. So this is just regular chicken breakfast sausage that I like to just sear off first in the pan. Then I add a little bit of chopped rosemary and then 2 capfuls of maple syrup, which gives them a wonderful sweet yet savory flavor. They're really delicious that way. And then I like to transfer them to a small casserole so that they'll fit in the oven at the same time with the egg bake. And then that way they can cook all the way through and remain hot so that when I serve the egg bake, they're also ready. So the egg bake still needs a little bit of time, and that's okay because the potatoes are totally looking great. They're roasting away, so I can take care of some things on the buffet. So I have my salsa bowls all ready to go. So all I have to do is pour in the salsa. I do a red salsa, a salsa verde, and then some of this really delicious smoky salsa. That way there's a nice little trio of flavors to choose from. So I have my salmon platter out. My cauliflower cakes are done and ready to go. You do want to allow them to cool a little bit before you actually assemble the salmon because the sour cream that you put on top of the cakes will start to melt if it's hot. So give them a few minutes. Then really it's just a dollop of sour cream, your salmon, a little bit of dill, and then I also like to garnish with just some fresh lemon and capers, and that's all there is to it. Then at this point, my eldest daughter came in to help me with the last minute preparations. I always find it's great to have a partner in crime when all of the things are being served on the buffet. It just helps to have 2 people. I probably should have taken the egg bake out first because I left it in a little bit too long. It usually isn't so golden brown, but that's okay. It'll still be delicious. And then the sausages were ready, so I popped those on the buffet. And then the potatoes, so I just put those in the big bowl, and then sometimes I like to add a little bit more salt to them. My daughter chopped the fresh mint for the fruit salad, which was really easy for her to do because the glass was right there waiting for her. And then it was time to welcome the guests.
Help yourself.
It's always such a sigh of relief when all the dishes are on the buffet. And it's so fun to see people's reaction as they try all of the food. That fluffy egg bake is so delicious. You can see the texture here. Typically, I don't even cut it into squares. I just serve it with a spoon and let everybody take as much or as little as they like. The flower arrangements were really pretty, and I think they just added to the Easter ambiance. I always love to see full plates and everybody trying a little bit of everything. And now that all the work was behind us, it was so nice to finally sit down, enjoy the beautiful arrangements, the family, the food, have a leisurely brunch, and maybe a second piece of cake. But not too much cake because we had to save room for those cannolis. It wouldn't be Easter without a cannoli.
Well, that concludes my Easter brunch video. I hope you guys got some great ideas for your own Easter next year. And you know what? This whole menu would be perfect for Mother's Day. Give it a try. I'll see you next time. Bye.